Alright, continuing on with the series on deciding on what approach you'll use in Gradebook, I'm going to show you now to what's referred to as passing through. So in this approach, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an assignment, okay, and I'm going to name it same thing. Let's create the exact same assignment, the persuasive essay. I'll just allow the abbreviation to autofill. I'll select a category. Doesn't matter what category I select for now, because the essay was classwork. I will use the classwork category. I'm going to have the score type as points. Okay, I'm going to leave my points possible as 10 for this demonstration. I'll have the due date as the 13th. I want it included in my final grade, and I also want to make sure I attach some outcomes. So we're working on a persuasive essay. I want to make sure I've got a nice description there for both parents and students if students are using the student portal. So there we go, there's my assignment description. I'm going to go to my outcomes and go down to my compose and create outcomes, and I'm going to put in all of them just for demonstration. So there's going to be 4 outcomes attached to this assignment. I'm going to save that, and as you can see here, it appears in my score sheet. Okay. Once again, this S stands for standards used interchangeably with the word outcomes in Gradebook. I'll open my standards drawer to expose the outcomes that I have attached to this assignment. And then I want you to notice what happens. You see my assignment is out of 10, so keep your eye on what happens to the levels of achievement assigned to each outcome when I put in a point total for my persuasive essay. So I have my persuasive essay here. I've assessed it using a rubric. I have distilled that mark down to a number grade out of 10, and I'm going to start putting it in for a few students. So I'll put an 8 out of 10 for this student. Look what happens. It passes through or auto calculates my point score and assigns a level of achievement to each outcome attached to this assignment. I'll show you again. This student scored a 7. I've got this student maybe gets a 10 out of 10, and so on. I can go all the way down here, and you can see what happens when I'm putting in assignment scores for each student. Okay. Now, in order to use this method, there's a couple of things you have to keep in mind. First of all, back to the old preferences that I showed you at a different time. And if I go to outcomes, I have to make sure this bottom box is selected if I want to pass through my assignment scores to outcomes. So right now it is selected. I've got allow assignment scores to auto calculate the assignment standard score, so it's all good. That means that anytime I create an assignment with a point value and I put in a point value for points achieved, it's going to auto assign the same level of achievement to each outcome attached. Now there's something you need to keep in mind if you're going to use this type of approach, and that is that as the semester or the reporting term goes on, there is a potential for there to be discrepancy between what is being calculated all the time as the final grade score and what you see as final outcome scores. And the reason is, of course, recall that the final outcome scores are calculated on the average of the 5 most recent or less times that an outcome was assessed, whereas the final grade is being calculated all the time throughout the term. So it is possible, therefore, to have someone with a very high final grade in one subject area and some levels of achievement on outcomes as final grades that don't match up, so they're lower. Or the reverse is quite possible too, a relatively low final grade but very high final outcome scores. So you have to pay attention to that and make sure that those two are consistent by the end of the reporting period.